That's going to get us in trouble.
I believe you're right. Hey there, Bob from Oregon's Constant Gardener. Welcome to the OCGFAM show. Scott Ostrander, what's going on? This is our third try at starting the show.
Yeah, this is not a good start. So
wildly inappropriate.
If you value the next 45 minutes of your life, you might want to just fast forward to the end and get a discount code.
Okay.
We learned some new words today, so that's good. That's a definition.
We learned why politically correctness is not necessarily entirely a bad thing.
I don't know.
I don't know. I guess they should. There's political correctness, which is not a great thing, and then just common decency, which is something that we sometimes lack.
Yeah, but it attracts people.
It does.
Realism.
We're homespun, plain spoken.
Hey, we're in Oregon. We're still in lockdown here. There's 40 states out there going, freedom! Wear your 14th mask, please.
I went skiing once when I was a kid in Utah with the people from my dad's corporation thing. They were all there, and they said, is it still like the Wild West out there? I'm like, well, yeah, but not like you think. No, there's no horses and wagons, but it's kind of like that a little bit. Anyway, we asked some questions. This first one's from Dam. I think that Dom. First one's from Tom.
What did you say, Dam?
Damn. Damn. Okay, so he says, can you do a mini vid of the time the beard mentions his foliar that brings green back? I can't find that episode. So you talked about something about greening the leaves back up again, I believe 1,000 years ago. And I couldn't find it either, I looked.
Was that pre or post tree to the face, I wonder? Today's version would be, which it should be very similar to the days of old, would have been the teaspoon per quart of Athena's, which has that protein. It's amino acid protein, so that will give a nice green up there. Pegasus potion, I do about a teaspoon of that per quart. So those two together are both very mild nitrogen protein sources, very, very responsive for the plant, the plant responds very quickly to it. And if you need some more nitrogen than those two to get the green up, another teaspoon of Medusa. So now you're at a full tablespoon per quart. But the Pegasus and the Athenas are so mild and so low on ppms, I'm not concerned about that being an overfeed. But if you need that growth and you need that umph, Medusa will give you the growth, and the Athenas and Pegasus would give you that greening up effect.
So when you see your plant, like it's dark green and then it starts kind of fading to a lighter green, what are you seeing there?
That's when I would take a quick slurry test,
Yeah.
and if your slurry numbers start going off, like my pH is now 6.9, what that's telling me is that your pH is starting to climb up for some reason, and nitrogen's no longer available because the pH scale has gone out of range. In that case, you figure, I'll just do a couple of feedings at a lower pH, maybe give it a flush with some Gaia to kind of bring the pH back down into range where the nitrogen's more available. If everything's in range, then the plants are just consuming, your parts per million are probably low in the slurry test. So the plants are starting to starve a little bit in the newer growth, which you get that lighter green appearance in the foliage.
Lighter green means they're hungry.
Lighter green means, they need more nutrition.
They're either out of whack with their pH or they're just not getting enough food.
Yeah, and the slurry is going to tell you both. And the nice thing about foliar feeding is you do your slurry, and if the ppms are low and the pH is perfect, then you just need to feed more. In the meantime, you can be foliar feeding to feed the tops of that plant so they're greening up before you even start root feeding them to get them back to green. But you can work the two angles to get them back to health really fast with foliar feeding.
If they get to yellow, a plurality of the plant is yellow, are you done? Or can you bring that back?
No, we do it all the time. So, a foliar feed, and that's the cool thing about foliar feeding is you can see the response within hours versus days after. So, foliar feeding regularly will help green them up faster while you're root feeding to bring back the reserves to keep them green longer.
On the other side of that, if I'm foliar feeding all the time, could I be starving my plants and not know because they look like they're happy, or is that a dumb question? Do you know what I'm saying? I mean, if I'm...
No, well, what you got to remember is what's mobile and immobile. So
right.
Looking at the list of immobile nutrition, you don't really foliar feed immobile nutrition because it can't relocate throughout the plant. So, I mean, you wouldn't be starving them. You would just be limiting to their diet for them. So you'd only be giving them these fully soluble, mobile nutrition in the foliage. So ideally, if you're foliar feeding, you're still keeping your calcium and your amino acids in the root zone to keep being brought up into the plant to build cells. But calcium, you're not foliar feeding unless you're using calcium chloride or calcium salts. Are you going to be able to foliar feed those into the foliage efficiently and have that calcium relocate within the plant?
So if I was on point with my foliar and I was less than perfect on my calcium and such through my root drench, how would that manifest and how would I know? I guess, and is that even a problem? I mean, this kind of popped into my head, I guess.
So what? Say that one more time.
I guess if I was foliar feeding so good that the plant looks good, but it's not getting all the nutrition it actually needs, what would happen? I mean, I wouldn't.
You'd see a calcium deficiency or a phosphorus deficiency. You'd see other deficiencies start to form. But if you have a decent potting mix or a good potting soil there, and you're foliar feeding all through veg, the plant can, and the microbes in the soil can continue to break all that stuff down, making it available. And if your plants are healthy, they're going to draw that nutrition up to absorption anyway. But if you deplete the soil, or you're in cocoa only or soilless medium, and you've never put any fertilizer in there, then you'd start to see, the clawing and the calcium deficiency or the ribbed foliage that's starting to bubble out because you are missing out on calcium, maybe some forms of potassium, or the fuller spectrum of what's in the soil that's available to the plant. But I mean, really, you can foliar feed a plant all through veg with only watering the root zone and usually get away with it with a good potting mix. It's just not going to be aggressive. It's not going to grow huge. It's not going to be branching. You're just feeding it.
I got you.
Foliage.
Okay. Good answer. I think it was a dumb question, but let's go. Orion's.
I think we'd probably beat it to death.
No, I meant my questions. All the stuff I went off after the fact. That was a good question.
Your questions are stupid, but you're back.
It's what I do.
It's acceptable.
Orion Sniper 55. I want to try these, but the shipping is the dollars. LOL. You were just talking about the shipping. It's a problem. It's a problem.
Yes.
But you're paying that shipping everywhere. You just don't know it, in my opinion. Because I get the Prime, and I pay for shipping still because they charge more for the product, and I pay them whatever it is a year to be part of that system that you don't have going on. So I guess what I was saying is that your shipping may be expensive, but everyone's is, but at least yours is honest, that you know what the actual thing is, and the price is lower from OCGFAM than it is other places.
Well, no, I'm thinking he's even saying that I want to try these, meaning a sample kit, and doesn't want to pay the money for the shipping and the.
Oh, is that what you got from it?
That's what I'm seeing.
Oh, well, that's insane.
If you go through OCG and you buy a round of fertilizer for a 4-plant grow, it's going to cost you $150, and that's free shipping. But if you want to try a gallon and a half of free fertilizer samples and want it for $15, well, the plastic bottles in there cost me more than that. So it's, the UPS shipping across the country, it gets, with our contract and our volume of UPS shipping, we're between $48 and $55 to get to the East Coast with the packaging cost. I mean, I got 2 people building these sample kits all day for people to take them away for free, so there's real money in that. So $55 for $140 worth of product isn't horrible.
So
to try them out. So
what's the sample kit?
That's what remind me when we're done with this. I have to ask you a couple questions about the questionnaire on the Facebook the page, because it's getting old to try this. I send out all these payment, these quotes for these shipping. I send out quotes for the sample kits, and then I get maybe 5 out of 15 will come back and want to try it, but the rest are like, it's too expensive for your free samples. And I'm like, well, I still have to pay people here. And just giving away my product. There's no point in being in business. So I need to just make sure people are serious about wanting to try it.
Yeah.
Literally, you're getting $140 worth of product. Stores hate us for giving out that many samples in that volume. So we're not going to apologize for not wanting to pay people to try our product.
Well,
if you want to try it, invest.
I would say from their side, devil's advocate, that when you call it a sample kit, they're thinking about samples, and what you're thinking, this is a fair try of the product. This is a tryout kit.
This is bigger than most people's Go boxes on the shelf.
Yeah.
You walk in and they have all 8 or 16-ounce bottles in there, and it's like, look at all these products, you're still not getting a gallon, you're getting a bunch of this. We're sending you full-on...
I think it's our fault, not theirs. I think we should describe that up front, that this is a try-it-out kit, and that the shipping is going to be about this to this, and this is if you want to take a serious try at this product. Because, if you want to try full-on or whatever, a little sample can kind of give you an idea. That you can't get an idea. This is like, you need a test drive of the product. You need to go weeks and weeks to know what you're going.
You need to do a plant. You need to get to the end. You need to taste it, and that should be able to help you change your mind or not. And if it doesn't, see, I got a lot of guys that are like, well, will this cover 20 plants? And it's like, well, you got a farm you want to sample? I mean, yes, it's good for 1 to 3 plants, really, depending on the size of your garden. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, it's tough. I mean, especially right now with the way the industry's going, it's and the way the fuel's going and shipping's going and trucking's going.
Hard for everything.
The samples aren't going to get cheaper with time because the freight's going through the roof right now. So, yeah, I mean, I won't apologize ever for 55 to the East Coast or Florida. I mean, we're here and Florida's here. That's $55 to get there. So.
Well, and this is big corporations fighting back at Shopify and people like us trying to do it independently. So they're like, well, we'll just make the shipping impossible because we can afford to pay the crazy shipping and they can't, and we'll just crush the bottom of the market.
Contracts with people like FedEx and UPS and stuff. I mean, I can't even get them to cover a damage claim. So anytime they lose it, anytime they destroy it, that's literally on us. So now that next case I'm replacing is now 100% loss for us. So, we love giving the samples. We want people to try it, but we also have to make sure you're invested because I've seen what trade shows do to the sample game. And, I'm not interested in having a whole bunch of growers who are running 48 different product lines and just trying to piece it together to get through so they can grow for free. I don't want free growers. I want people who are thinking about what they're doing, getting to the finish line, and then being proud of the flowers they grew. I'm happy to work with people on samples on that level. That or, encourage your local retailer to buy directly from us because we flood them with samples because they're paying for the freight to get it to them.
And you can send a pallet, not one, which is by the piece way cheaper.
The worst way. And majority of the freight that leaves this building is on a board, which means our freight for LTL is reasonable, but we don't do parcel. We don't sell onesie-twosies. So our UPS is literally sample kits. That's all.
Well, if someone picks that up and carries it to a truck, takes it out of that truck and carries it to another truck, maybe puts it on an airplane or whatever it takes. I mean, you think about how much effort it takes to get that thing from here to Florida. $50 is cheap. You wouldn't do it. It cost you $3,000 to take that, to drive it over there. It's funny. Now, anyway, okay. We beat that one to death, too.
This show sucks.
Ben Squire.
This bitch.
Remember Billy Squire? Billy Squire was cool. He just kind of disappeared. Everybody wants you. Remember that guy? You were probably more into like Billy Squire from the 80s. He was...
Oh, I didn't hear what name you were saying. You just started going like this and looking weird. I know Billy Squire is.
Yeah, it was awesome. What happened to him? It doesn't matter. Ben Squire, probably not related, says, hey, nectar grower. Hey, nectar grower. Benji Grow... Oh, this guy's got a channel. Benji from Grow Diaries. For 5 years sporting my Kraken hoodie, mixing my morning feed, doing my first foray into cloning and photos, and I've got autos in my tent. Can I successfully maybe clone the following edition of Kraken? Oh, okay. Can I clone after using Kraken? Is what he's asking. So you've talked about this.
Off with that until you get ready to put the mother outside.
So the thing is, I think he's talking.
Foliar in.
Well, with the Kraken stiffening up things, is it making it woody stiffen it up, or is it just making it stiffy? Is it making it just?
I mean, I personally, I would wait.
Yeah.
I mean, I would avoid Kraken foliar feeding if you're using it on moms. Like, feel free to water it in. I don't see. Well, I mean, it still makes them strong, but it doesn't make them rigid and not pliable on the top. So, for moms, I prefer all root feeding with the Kraken versus any foliar feeding because the strength becomes too strong.
Okay.
I don't think you get a good success rate on the clones after Kraken. 1 or 2 applications is probably not an issue, but if it's regular, it's probably going to become too firm.
So you're talking about foliar feeding the Kraken. You would not do on a mother, but you would still do some Kraken root drench on it to make it stronger and more.
It wouldn't hurt.
Okay.
I mean, for what he's trying to do, it won't make that difference. But foliar feeding, I think, makes them stronger, faster, and more rigid. So I would wait. I would leave the Kraken out of my mother's regimen probably altogether just for keeping those roots going nice and smooth. And then once they take root, feel free to give the baby some Kraken and get them healthy that way. But I'd avoid it on the mom. Stick with your regular foliar feeds of, I like to foliar feed the tops of moms right before cloning just because I'm feeding those tops.
Sure.
So when they do get cut from their life source, they actually have
some nutrition in their leaves.
Foliage.
Yeah.
That helps them kind of root a lot faster because they're able to use that up once they know the nutrition's starting to deplete through the foliage. Then they want to start diving down looking for nutrition below, so they send out roots faster to look.
So even if you've had good luck with Kraken, it's part of your grow, you like it, even on a mother situation, you would refrain.
Yeah, I mean, I like to try and kill things, so I would
see what happens.
As a owner of the company, I'd say put it aside for moms or experiment, but I would imagine that you're going to find it either longer process to root because that stem is going to be denser and maybe even a little woody.
Yeah.
I don't like taking clones off of woody stems because it just takes forever for that root to pop.
Well, I feel like it's higher stakes with the mother too, of where there's more penalty for messing up because you just got this plant that you want to have. Whereas if excuse me, with the other plants, if one of them dies or 2 of them dies, that sucks. But it's not like losing mom.
No. Yeah.
Okay. Chris was wondering if maybe Scott could talk about the differences between nitrogen sources, Athena's Aminos and Pegasus Potion.
They're both proteins of nitrogen. I mean, they're both. So Pegasus is a feather meal nitrogen source. So it's a protein of feather. And then we hydrolyze the feathers and break them down. So literally we're just pulling off the nitrogen protein. Now, and so it's a very mild, non-nitrate nitrogen form. So it's very active in the nitrogen sense, but it's not going to elongate, stretch, or promote elongation growth. Like internodal spacing won't elongate because of Pegasus, because it helps keep the cells green. The plant's going to assimilate that protein and use it as a nitrogen because that protein is a nitrogen. Now, Athena's is an amino acid. And amino acid chains and blocks have binders on the ends of the block chain, which amino acid, the Athena's comes from pigskin. So it's literally a nitrogen form of amino acid. So when the amino acid block is broken or dissolved or absorbed, it leaves behind these fractions of nitrogen block chain off of that amino acid block that the plant can absorb. And again, very mild forms of nitrogen. So you can't burn with it. You can't, you're not going to stretch the plants with it, but it's super gentle for the plant to assimilate it. And the microbes love those type of nitrogen sources because they're not hot. They're not a nitrate. The plants or the microbes in the soil can break down those amino acids and use those nitrogen forms as a food source. And so it's just a gentler, easier balance of nitrogen. But the 2 forms are hair. So it's a little bit more of a nitrogen you'd see for growth, like feather meal is a much better growth food than amino acids. And amino acids is just because there's nitrogen on the actual amino acid block.
coincidentally to what you're trying to accomplish with Athena's? I mean...
Well, no, I mean, that's just what it is.
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, we know that every cell and every living thing is calcium and amino acid built.
Sure.
So we focused on getting the right amino acids, and the best form of that would then, skin. And that skin releases that nitrogen because of just how those amino acids are built.
So what's the practical application of Pegasus versus Athena's? I mean, what are you trying to accomplish, or it's just part of the mix, and you're just...
I think Pegasus is a far more aggressive greening, far more aggressive nitrogen when it comes to the gentle forms of nitrogen. Pegasus is more aggressive. Like, you can use it as a nitrogen source and feel like you're getting better growth, better greening, better development of the plant. Where amino acid, Athena's, is giving us all the greening, but it's giving us more cell structure. It's giving us more calcium uptake. It's giving us those cell block, or the cell structure in the plant's being built stronger with that amino acid and that calcium, versus the protein from nitrogen feathers is just giving you growth and energy and so it goes into the plant's growth. Foundation
and framework stuff versus big foliage kind of situation, kind of. But you use both, right? I mean, but if you had to do one over the other, wouldn't you say that Athena's is kind of a cornerstone of the line, whereas the Pegasus is like a...
Well, yeah, because Pegasus is in Medusas, and Pegasus, so I'm getting my feather protein already in Medusa. In Medusa, I keep Pegasus around for, hey, my stuff's yellowing, what's going on? I did my slurry, they're starving, I'll foliar feed them that to get them greened up. And then I'll also use that because of the fruity terpenes it seems to pull out mid-bloom. So that'll be, and that's just some protein in the feather that is triggering something in this plant to make these different aromas happen, or these flavors to happen. So Pegasus is really, for me, it's a foliar to green things up. If I have a really, like corn or tomatoes, adding extra of that to help the growth and to get them a little bit bigger as they're developing, and for flavor enhancement terpene profiles in mid-bloom.
Okay.
Where Athena's is just, we're building cells, we need the foundation concrete, send us the concrete, and that's what Athena's is the concrete machine for the foundation of the plant's strength.
So would you say that broadly the Pegasus is a flavoring thing to your mind that has a utility of greening things up when you have some issues with foliage?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's definitely a toolbox tool for sure. There are guys that swear by it, use it every time no matter what, and it's their go-to. I personally leave it in the toolbox as, I'm seeing this issue or I want to enhance that. There's my tool.
Okay.
Crank and twist.
Okay. Dingle OG47. How long will Zeus juice last in a clear container? I popped a hole in the original bottle and put it in an apple juice bottle. All I had. He's out there in the desert.
It should be fine. I mean,
I'm thinking about Walt and Jesse out in the desert when they're making the meth. And they're like, we gotta find some way to get this generator going. I got an apple juice bottle.
Got a hole in the radiator. It should be totally fine. If you're really concerned, I'd probably just duct tape the clear bottle. Put a layer of duct tape around there and it'll at least reduce the light. But out of all the things Zeus juices, million-year-old sauce of pre-oil digestive earth. So
it's been through it.
Spoiled for about 8,000 years.
This is nothing.
Spoil it worse, No, it should be totally fine.
Okay.
Now, if it was like Athena's, blacking that out would be ideal because the UVs can oxidize it. They can turn it brown. But for the most part, most of our nutrients would be fine for a general garden use in a opaque or clear container. The worst you're going to see is just the changing of colors because it's going to react to light. But
okay. Chaz Ogre, how long can you store unopened bottles?
At least 5 years. You know that.
Yeah. So, we were going to do gray bush as a whole episode. Is this the question there? Yeah, this thing, somehow it got back into my...
Can you foliar feed the meters?
Yeah, you know what happened? My phone, I'm holding it, and every time I shake it, it goes to undo. And so it's putting stuff back in. So
you talk like this.
It did it again. So 540, boys. Can you foliar Demeter's destiny?
Can and should.
Yeah.
Yeah, can. You can. Should you? It's not very efficient. There will be slight reaction as far as how it will absorb. The downfall is the white will look like mildew when you're done. You're not getting the full load of calcium that you really are trying to get in there. The only calcium source we've found that really works decent as a foliar is calcium chloride or calcium salt, and both of the ones we just won't use. So those are the most soluble, the most reactive, and the downfall is if you over apply those, you can essentially dry out the foliage and kind of harm the leaves, because it's, I mean, that's how you get rid of people in holes, is a lot of lash. So you don't really want to be spraying.
You can come out or we can do this.
What you want to do? Bend them or should have digest them? So I would not use it as a regular practice. I think you get more out of Aphrodites than you would out of Demeter's. Herculean does not foliar feed well at all, and if you have to pH adjust it with Olympus up, you're going to see that white powder that will make you panic about mildew for many days.
So, would you say, I don't even know if this is a question, that you could split the line into things that are calcium and nitrogen? That you have things that you're gonna root feed this thing to build this plant, but you have other things that are more effective foliar? Or would you say everything works about the same going down into the roots, and then you do some foliar as an additional thing? Just philosophy-wise.
No, I mean, if you broke off the Pegasus, Athenas, Megamorpheus, Poseidon, Chaos, those products as foliar feeds are amazing and immediate, and I mean, they can all be absolutely fed through the foliage, and the results would be quick. Like, I mean, basically once it dries, 3 minutes after drying, it will show you a Brix response on how the plant responds to that. And that's how we test everything there, is how does the plant respond. But now calcium and these thicker products like Medusa, Gaia, Herc, Circes, Tritons, Persephones, because of the thickness of those, they just become less efficient as a foliar feed, because they're so built with so much material that it just is an overwhelming load of food that can't all absorb through the foliage, so you end up with residual product on the leaves, and that just looks ugly. So, yeah, I mean, anything calcium and anything thick designed to feed microbes should be root fed. Yeah. And those really thin, non-calcium based products can all be foliar fed, but they can also be root fed as well. The plants eat just as fine under the soil, but that response is so quick in the foliage for figuring out what's going on with your plants, if that makes sense. So, I mean, when we see a plant that's struggling and somebody calls us out to their farm, we bring out nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, calcium. We bring out a whole spectrum of different elements in there, and we use chemicals for this, like whatever salts, because you can't really find just an organic magnesium source that you can foliar feed. But we go out to these farms and we take one of their plants and we treat this branch with just mag, this one with cobalt, this one with phosphorus, and this one with nitrogen. Then we go back around and we read all the different Brixes, and those one branch will tell us, oh man, I hated that much more potassium, but you know what we need is we need more nitrogen, or we need more phosphorus, because each branch will tell us a different story through the Brix meter.
So if you're trying to figure out what's going on or fix what's going on, foliar is an excellent solution. But all things being equal, everything being fine and dandy, would you prefer to do your nitrogen through the roots?
Oh, I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because I can mix it all up together, and it's one step less I don't have to take in my room while I'm feeding, because I can, nitrogen is it's soluble, it's easy to break down, so watering it in, it goes fast. If I need it to go faster, then foliar feeding will make that happen.
I got you. So in a situation, foliar, but day to day, just fine to go root trench on it.
Oh yeah, and so many people do, because they just, a lot of the bigger farms, foliar feeding is like taboo for many reasons.
Yeah.
I mean, time, labor, and man hours is just consuming. And then you have the potential of an overcrowded room with too much foliage, and then all of a sudden, mildew, mold, something else can set in because you don't have a good environment.
Sure.
So a lot of people avoid foliar feeding in the larger settings just because of the fear of failing labs down the road.
So if you're focusing on your root drench situation and you've got that dialed for the most part, is there anything that you would still foliar feed that you would just do a foliar because it's better that way? Or does that make sense at all? I mean, like
I think like Bloom Chaos.
Yeah.
Here's a perfect in our line. Bloom Chaos, depending on the stage you're in, it's better to foliar feed in certain stages than it is to root feed. So, in vegetative stage, you're trying to develop more flower sites, internodal spacing a little bit tighter. It's far better as a foliar feed because it's reacting to the growth of the plant and keeping it from stretching. Instead, it's focusing on developing flower sites. But now, if you don't want that heavy flowering sites in these small little plants, then watering that in is a better option. So it really comes down to the action, the mode, and the plants.
Okay. One last thing then. So if I'm doing my root drench, but would you say that the foliar feeding can be a backstop in the way that having one shot in your soil is, that it takes care of the plants if you're underfeeding them accidentally because you're using LEDs or you've got the plants are wanting to eat? Is it helpful in the same way that the one shot is to keep things in line until you get it as a...
Exactly, yeah. It's a really fast, quick shortcut to keep them fed while you're rebuilding that reserves in the soil. So that's a good point, because I will tell a lot of people just that. It's like, oh, you're at 180 parts per million, your pH is 6.5, you're late veg? Yeah. Okay, foliar feed them twice a day while you start root feeding them a little bit more aggressively, or get some one shot in there, continue foliar feeding until that one shot balances out the needs, and then you can reduce the foliar feeding and go back to just water them or bottle feed.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah.
All right. That's all the questions.
Well, and then we have two questions about slurries that they're on this list. We want to get to them. Our goal is, I think, we want to do a video episode breaking down the steps, breaking down the madness behind when you're talking to me directly versus talking to the Facebook group directly. There should be a standard. However, I listen to the grower on such a deep level that I really want to make sure I'm understanding exactly. So a lot of times what I'm asking the grower may not reflect exactly what the full group in Facebook would be doing. Generally follow the Facebook guys. They can help you with that level. And then when you get to me, I may ask you to do different things, like a different water source, because I notice your water has, you water with your plant this every time you feed. This tap water that's, let's say, 500 parts per million and the pH is 6.3. And you water with that. You mix your ferts with that. You get everything there ready to go, and that's what you're feeding your plants. So for you to do a slurry with distilled, knowing that your water is what it is, that's a base nutrient in my opinion. So if you're watering with that, I kind of want to know what that reaction is doing to the slurries when you take a slurry with the water. Now, in a perfect world, all of our water is distilled and perfect and clean. The distilled way is the way to go. 1-to-1 with distilled, that's going to get us a really good information. But if your water's jacked and you're using that water to feed, that's a component of the feed that I need to know what that reaction is. Something in the water could be reacting to the slurry, and I want to know how bad those numbers get, if that makes any sense. Yeah.
Well, I would say from my point of view, if you ask your question in the comments on the YouTube video, you're going to learn far more in a bigger sense from the answer than you would if you'd sent you an email, in the sense that we're going to have to necessarily answer that question generally here because it's for everyone. And so it'll lead to a conversation. It'll lead to a bigger understanding of that topic. But if you have a problem, you send an email to Scott, through the contact page, you're going to get the answer to your specific question. And it may be something that wouldn't work for 20 other people because you have a unique situation, and he's going to help you fix that. But that's not going to give you the bigger understanding of throwing a question out here in the comment where we all just kind of discuss that and talk it through in a philosophical sense to some extent. Yeah. No, that's perfect. And that's it is a trick.
I mean, it's getting the right answer, but then discovering the why we're having these issues.
Yeah.
God, I had a point to that.
Oh, gosh, sorry.
No, you're fine. This is good. I just don't remember what the hell I was thinking. Brain damage. Dang, that was a good point, but whatever. We'll hit it. That's the point. We'll definitely do an episode on that. We'll show some different ways of doing this to get to the end result.
Yeah.
But it's just being a little patient with the differences, and it's only because we really want to make sure we're taking care of the customer that's reaching out with that specific issue. And so I want to make sure that they know that it's, for the most part, the distilled way is the absolute way. But there are always variables that we have to keep in mind and inspect and discover to make sure we're not missing the big picture. There's oftentimes we just miss, I use my RO water, but the RO water then goes to a water softener, so that would have been good to know. You know? So, just those pieces.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's a pretty good show. Started off a little rocky.
That's a show. We'll definitely get back to it.
All right.
Sweet.
The OCGFAM show is pretty good. It happens every day. It's the OCGFAM show. See you tomorrow.